What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We've got session 2 of our individual skills camp. Coach Steph Wheeler took us through on Mondays, and she was working on our one-on-one defense. And now today we're going to be working on two-on-two offense. Because this is going to be individual camp, we're going to go through a lot of the basics, really get in depth of how those work well with each other, especially with two-on-two. There's going to be a couple of different progressions that we're going to build through to go from there. But I am Coach Buchi, and I would love to know where you guys are from. So let's just take a minute and let's just put in the chat box where you're from, and let's just see where everybody's at. Let's see, we've got 56 attendees. Looks like, yeah, 56 attendees in right now. So let's just start putting in where we're from while we get ready to go. Utah, Ontario, Canada, Japan, Ireland, Michigan. Yeah, what's up, Michigan? All right. North Wales, UK, Mississippi and Ohio. A couple of people from Texas. Grand Rapids, Michigan. All right, another Michigan folk. Jacksonville, Florida. What's up, Jacksonville? Brooks Ballers down there. Brazil, UK, Bangladesh, Bogota, Colombia. We've got people from all over the place. This is awesome. Very cool. Just keep them coming in here. Mexico, Virginia. A couple people from Virginia. Awesome. California. Great. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this. Like I had mentioned, I'm Coach Buchi. We're running two-on-two offense today. We will have this afternoon another coaching clinic where Steph and I will be running us through a coaching session with Coach Mike Frogley, working on the long-term athlete development plan. And then also what we're going to do is our last individual skills session that you guys are signed up for will be on Friday. And that's going to be with our athletic trainer, Connor Doherty. And he's going to be walking through a workout in the lifting gym with a couple of our athletes. So we've got some things planned for that. We're going to be able to, it's going to be, he and I are going to be asking some questions and also answering some questions from you guys on what you could be doing at home if you had access to a gym, or just things that you could be doing at home if you had light weights, TheraBand, stuff like that. So looking forward to have you guys there to go through that. All right, so let's jump into our first little bit here of two-on-two offense. So we got a couple of slides that are going to help us kind of lead the way. And the first thing that we're going to be talking about is when working with a teammate on offense, you will need a couple of different things. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is great communication. We know that really great basketball players have really good communication. And a great way to work with great communication is night communication. Really great acronym that PGC Basketball had put together and have talked about a lot. And myself and some of the others have worked on and used with our athletes is the acronym NITE, is night. You can see there, night communication. The N in night is going to stand for name. So that's the first thing that you're going to use when you're having communication with a teammate, is using that person's name. Most people would say it's the sweetest sound to somebody's ear is their name that you would use. So you want to use the name, and then the I is information. You're going to use the name and then information. So if I was going to say something and be, Steph, I need you to go here. So I'm giving the name and then the information. The next is the T, and that's standing for tone. The tone of how you say it. And we know a lot of times when there's people in a high pressure situation, they may be struggling to try to get the information out. So they just say it in kind of a yell, and it might be angry or something like that. We want to make sure that our tone is even keel, or even it has some encouragement to it, so that we'll be able to get that point across in an easier way. And then the last one is going to be one of two separate E's. We're either talking about encouragement, like we just mentioned, about having some kind of lightness to your tone, and then also eye contact. It's really important to gain some eye contact and for great communication with a coach. And if you want to work with a coach and have that coach teach you really well, if you've got great eye contact with that person, they're going to be able to work with you better. So name, information, tone, and eye contact, that's night communication. The next thing that you're going to be wanting to work on is decision understanding. So with that communication, now do the individuals that you are working with understand the decisions that you're making? And that's going to be talking about the locations that you're going to, the reads that you may be seeing and making, and what kind of mismatches you're going to have. And a lot of time, or a lot of things that we're going to be talking about in this session is going to be talking about those reads of picking backs and creating backs. We mentioned a lot of when you're looking for a pick in an offensive set, you want to look for a person's back and pick it. And so that means looking at a defender and seeing the back of them and going up to set a pick that way. If you set a pick on a defender that's looking at you, they can see the pick coming and try to get out of the way. The other idea of it would be creating backs, where you're trying to create a opportunity for the defense to turn their chair so their back faces your teammate so that they can get the pick. The third item that we have on here is urgency without rush. We want to make sure that we're getting to the location that we want to get to without following. You know, a lot of times in the game where you're really rushing to get down, maybe down to the low block or, you know, get inside of the key, we might get in there a little too fast, make some contact or flip over or get a foul. We don't want to do that, but we want to get there in a good amount of time. So urgency without rush. So now let's talk about the locations. The locations are what we're going to be working on today. Terminology that we're going to be talking about is quarter court, 2/3 court, and half court. So when we talk about quarter court, that's going to be sideline, so the side of the court to the edge of the key that's closest to that side of the court. That's going to be quarter court, and we can do it for the full length of the floor or to half court. The second item is going to be 2/3 court. So when we talk about 2/3 court, that's going to be the same sideline that we were talking about originally in quarter court, but now this is going to include the entire key. So that's going to be the sideline to the far edge of the key will be 2/3 of the court. And then the last one we'll be talking about is half court. And half court is going to be from sideline to sideline, from baseline to half court line, right? That's going to be our half court distance. And when we get through our different sets, we're going to be talking about these areas of court space and what is efficient in what we're doing. Some of them work well in quarter court, some in 2/3 court, and some in half court. So now let's talk about what kind of reads that we're going to be talking about today. The reads that we're going to be working on today is screen and roll. And like you can see on there, the screen and rolls are going to be worked in the quarter court, reading on the right side and left side. And remember that you can do it on the right side of the key and the left side of the key for the screen and roll. The next one will be a pick and roll. So that's again in the quarter court on the right and left side of the key, but it's going to be on different angles and different positions, which we'll get into. And then we're going to go into two different ways of running with a cross pick and roll. And that's going to be working in a 2/3 court on right or left. So that incorporates the key and it extends out. And then it also works on a full half court read from sideline to sideline when you extend out. And we are going to be adding a third offensive defensive player to really stretch out in that half court read. Okay, so let's jump into this first one for screen and roll. So when we're talking about screen and roll, this is the most common way of setting up in a 2-on-2 offense. And the majority of you that are playing in junior level or maybe adult game, this is what a lot of people are going to set up, is that one person's going to be in a dive setting and one's going to be in a shooter. Most common way of running for offense. It allows for offensive players to have a safe shooting distance for an open shot. We know a lot of times when we get that dive and we get shooter behind there, they have enough space, their distance of, 10 to 15 feet away, that they're going to be able to have that space to be able to get a shot off and not have the defender in their face. Like I mentioned, there's two different roles in this. You have the diver and you have the shooter. And so we're going to decide who those are in the transition and in the communication that we do. And it usually ends up being about 10 to 12 feet from the basket, depending on what kind of league and what positions you may have with your teammates. All right, so how do we get this set up? So how to set up in a screen and roll play is we've got to decide who's going to go in what position, right? The first person that talks in transition is the one that is going to decide what we're running for our screen and roll. So knowing a lot of times we've gotten into games and you get to a certain spot on the side of the key and somebody's saying, all right, okay, you be the dive. I'm like, no, you're the dive. You were the dive last time. And we go back and forth and back and forth. It's going to make it really simple that the first person that talks in transition is going to be the one that creates and decides what happens. And like we have mentioned here, the night communication in that transition should be the person's name, and then mentioning what that information is going to be. Let's go to the right side. I've got your dive. And notice that little bit of communication gives a lot of information. We're talking about the person that we're working with. We're talking about the location that we're going to go on the right side of the floor. And we're also talking about who's going to do what reads. Next one's going to be who leads the way. When we actually get to the right side of the floor, and I know that one person's a dive and one person is a shooter, who's going to go down there first? Who's going to go after it? Is it the person that's the biggest? Is it the big person? Is it the dive? Is it the shooter? And what we're going to say in this read is that it's going to be the shooter that leads the way with speed. If we have the shooter lead with speed and attacks low and drives the defense lower, that's going to allow for the dive to get into the position where they want to be. We know many a times when we run a screen roll in a game and the defense has pushed us out, if the dive leads the play, they may get stuck with the defense out way further than they want to. And now we've got more work ahead of us. But why not have the shooter attack first, pull the defense closer to the key, and give the dive the opportunity and space they need. The last thing is going to be is where does the dive go? Okay, a lot of times our bigs that are dives want to go to the low block. That's that common place where they want to go. Other times they may not have that space to get there, so they want to go to the elbow. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we get to that first line above the low block on the edge of the key. You're really narrowing yourself to get to the middle of the edge of the key so you have space on the high and on the low. And then holding that position between the two defenders. Okay, let's watch a little bit of a clip on screen and roll video.
As the screen is being set, the shooter comes in behind her teammate. The shooter comes in behind the screen less than a chair width from the screen and equal distance from the two defenders. You want less than a chair width so the defense cannot establish position on the shooter by jumping in front when the ball is in the air, and you want it to be in equal distance from both defenders so the defense is delayed in jumping out as they decide who should jump. When the pass comes into the shooter, it should be passed to the hand away from the defender who is ready to jump. In this case, the shooter's right hand, because it's the high defender that is jumping. When the defender jumps to prevent the shot, the shooter takes the ball and dribbles hard to the baseline with 2 hard pushes and her head up. The screener adjusts his chair to prevent defensive recovery and then rolls. The 2 explosive pushes create the needed space and get the shooter into a threat position, quickly forcing the defense to switch quickly, and having her head up allows her to see the court if she needs to pass. As the shooter rolls, she reads whether she or her teammate is open. The ball is kept for the drive or is passed inside to her teammate depending on where the defender rotates.
Okay, now we're going to switch over to our whiteboard. And we've got a setup here on some chairs and graphics to figure out how we're going to get set up in our screen and roll. So what we mentioned first, we want to make sure that our dive, which is going to be our number 1 matchup here, is going to work on trying to get into its position on the dive, which means the person that is going to be leading the play, the shooter in this scenario, is going to be driving low and trying to pull the defense lower in their position. As they rotate out, our dive that should be trailing the play as the number 1 spot is going to go in and dive in between. And like we mentioned, is going to be in the middle edge of the key in between the 2 defenders. Once our offensive player rotates back out behind, that's going to set up in our screen read. So let's talk about each position individually and what their reads are. All right. So the first one we're going to be talking about is our dive. So we know that our dive is getting into the edge of the key and it's attacking right there at the edge of the key. They want to make sure to turn their chair to center it and then have the side of the key with their foot plate against it in between those 2 chairs. So they got good position on that one. They want to communicate. Once they get here, they're going to be communicating what the defense is doing and what their reads are. They could see that the defense is playing a little higher or playing a little lower. They're communicating to the shooter behind them what the defense is going to do. When the defense decides to jump, if they're going to be jumping on the high or jumping on the low, let's say in this position, we're going to be jumping from the high, which is this high position here. If they jump from the high, the dive is going to quarter turn their chair and try to get position with their big wheel behind the high jump. And once they get their position behind it and our shooter has driven low, we now have the high defender picked out. Once the high defender tries to rotate to get back in, we have them picked out, defender commits, and we have our 2-on-1 roll. Set it back up. So like we said, we have this position where if they jump out, position is pushed in and gets behind the defender on the high side, so that when our shooter drives low, pulls the low defender and allows us to have a 2-on-1 option. Now let's talk about what happens when they don't jump. So if they're not jumping and the dive is holding their position, and we know that the high and the low are staying and holding in their spot, then they're going to be able to keep their position and communicate to their shooter behind that they can take the open shot. So ball will be passed over to the shooter and they can take that open shot there. All the cues for the dive are tendencies and different things that they read from the defense and knowing what's going to happen there. There also could be a situation where we know defenses are always going to be jumping from the high, so we may overplay higher to deny the high jump if we want our shooter to shoot. Okay, now let's go back and we're going to talk about what the shooter does. Number 2 on here, what the shooter does. So like we had mentioned, they're going to lead the play, driving low and curling out so that their dive can get the position that they want. They're then going to curl and go behind their dive. They want to make sure that they've got a good 45-degree angle to the basket, but then also having even spacing between the two defenders. If they were to be really low, this defender would have an easier opportunity to defend and jump that shooter. Or if they played really high, the high could go up and jump that shooter. So they want to make sure they have even position between the two defenders. They also want to have a half a chair length of space between the dive and themselves in the front part of their chair. If they were really far out, that would give an opportunity for the defender to jump out in between the two and play individual matchups. So, and if they were too close, they were right up next to each other, these defenders could push number 1 into number 2 and cause number 2 to have issues getting stuck on the chair, maybe missing a shot if they had possession of the ball. So they want to have a good half chair length away. Now that they're in this position, dive is communicating with the shooter of where the jump's going to come from. And again, let's say they're jumping from the high because shooter has the ball. They're going to put the ball to the floor in a dribble, and they're going to take 2 hard pushes with a dribble away from what the position of the jumper is. So if we jump from high, they're going to push 2 hard pushes low. That gives the spacing that our dive needed to get the pick. And now they reestablish their position and they're shooting square to the basket so that the defender low has to make a decision. They have to decide if they're going to jump to the shooter or if they're going to stay in and stay on the number 1 that's going to be rolling to the basket. If they go to the shooter, number 1 rolls to the basket and then pass goes to number 1 inside. If they stay on number 1, number 2 has the opportunity to shoot from the baseline uncontested. Both reads are going to be in a screen with a jump. We're rolling off of it, and it gives an opportunity for an open shot. No matter what happens in this scenario, we want to make sure that 1 and 2 are working together, communicating what needs to be happening on this side. And if neither of them jump defensively, 2 also has their open shot here in the screen, or they can swing the ball to the other side of the court and continue playing basketball. We had a question that came up before we jump into our next one.
Is there a way to effectively talk with the other team knowing what you're doing.
Yes. Okay. So we're talking about, is there an effective way of communicating to your teammate without having the other team know what's going on? One of the things that we would say, and we would say with some of our college athletes, is if we're able to do everything that we want to do effectively and efficiently as possible, it shouldn't matter if we tell them what's going to be happening. We should be able to say exactly what we're going to do and have the right positions and right reads in place to do it. Now, if that's not the case and we're not in that position to be able to push hard and, get past our defense or get these types of picks, we can also have some kinds of codes of jump, no jump, half jump, full jump, or, I know a lot of teams that have used colors or things in place that have put in the code of red and green, depending on you're jumping or not jumping, evaluating what those defenders are going to do. So it really comes down to what language and method you all want to discuss and talk about with your teammates. Okay. So that is our screen and roll. Now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our pick and roll. So let's go back to our slides. And now we're talking about pick and roll. With pick and roll, again, we're talking about quarter court reads on the right or left side. With pick and roll, because it's going to have more space and there's a little bit more to it, it's a little more common in a higher level gameplay, which would be college level or Paralympic level. The needs for the offensive players need to be a shooting threat and post-up threats. They need to have multiple options. When we talked about in the screen read earlier, the dive position really just needs to hold its ground to get an open shot. But if they do jump, it would be great to have somebody of size and be able to post up. In this one, you need to have multiple shooting threats in different areas and be able to be efficient. What the pick and roll does is it allows us to have our offense to create a 2-on-1 situation, a lot like the screen and roll does, but it allows it to happen in open space. And so that's what's really great about the pick and roll is you're using open space. And we know in wheelchair basketball, because of being in the chair, there's no real lateral movement compared to our able-bodied counterparts. So the more space you have, the more time you have to be able to make reads because the defense can't react to that in time because of the distance. When we're talking about pick and roll, there's two different roles that are going to be involved in here, and we're going to refer to them as the picker and the picky. And the picky is going to be the one that has the ball in hand, and they're the one that has a defender on them that's going to get picked. And then the picker is the offensive player that's going to go set the pick. So remember, the picker is picking, and the picky is the ball handler that is receiving the pick. Like we mentioned before, spacing is key to allow picks to work.
You set the pick using the principle of which defender is furthest from the midline of the basket. This time, it's the high defender who is furthest. The mechanics are the same for the picker and the person being picked for as they were for the high to low pick. The offensive player is the picker and says, "Stay there, I'm picking for you," to her teammate. She does a V-cut. The picker does a banana cut. The picker sets her pick with her front caster 6 inches away from the defender's wheel closest to the basket. The picker finishes her pick and rolls to the basket when space has been created.
Great. All right, so now we're back to the whiteboard. We just watched and looked at a low to high pick. We're going to be talking about low to high picks and high to low picks. So we're going to break down the low to high pick just as the video showed, and then we'll move into a high to low. So the first thing that we have here we're going to be talking about is the picker. And the picker is going to be number one down here on the low block. They're matched up one-on-one with a defender down here on the low. And we have number two, which is our ball handler that is up here on the high. What the picker is going to do first is going to be communicating to the ball handler that they can set the pick, right? Like we mentioned before with our night communication, there'll be communication in the person's name. You say, "Hey," to the person's name, "I've got your pick," right? Once they've communicated that, what they're going to do is they're going to run a V-cut. What we consider a V-cut is the person that is going to go set the pick, they want to change their chair direction opposite of where they set a pick so that the defender turns to guards that area. Notice that they turned low to try to fake low, which turned the defender facing low, And now when they go back high, the defender has to rotate a full 180 to recover and chase. This gives an opportunity for having the picker have a half-second advantage to get that pick. So now that we have communicated and V-cut, now what we're going to do is we're going to do a banana cut. And the banana cut is a curve like a banana. And I just so happen to have a banana right there. That's the curve that we're going to be doing when we go up to set that pick. We call it the banana cut because it's following a curve in to set a pick on the defender. So notice we have that curve of the banana pick to get it there. When we set that pick on the banana cut, it's going to be setting a pick on the wheel closest to the basket. So in this position with the angle of the defender and the ball handler, our pickee, one is going to follow the curve of the pick and it's going to set a pick on the large wheel closest to the basket. Notice that positioning there in the pick. They're also going to be making sure that they are 6 inches away from that wheel. And we say a lot of times like how to think about the mindset of what 6 inches away. That's the length of an American dollar bill. So that's going to be 6 inches away. You don't want to make contact when we set this pick because that's an easy way of getting a foul or being able to lose the position that we actually want. We're going to be V-cutting low, following the banana cut up 6 inches away on the pick. And then we hold this position until the defender needs to rotate and come back in. That's when we're going to push forward and close off the pick, finishing the pick. It's where we have axle to caster position. Our large wheel is in front of the caster of the defender. Once we finish that and our ball handler has come here low, our picker is going to keep the pick by turning and finishing the pick and making sure that the offensive player is behind them. And now we have a 2-on-1 situation where this defender has to decide who they're going to guard. Do they go to the picker or do they stay with the picky ball handler? And if they stay with the ball, our picker drives to the basket for the layup. If they decide to stay with the picker, our pickee, the ball handler, has an opportunity to go to the basket for a shot. And this second option was the one we saw in the video, where the defender stayed with the picker, ball handler was able to roll the basket. So those are the actions of the picker. Again, let's walk through those. Number 1, communicating that we've got a pick. Number 2, V-cut low to fake the defender. 3, banana cut to get position on that big wheel 6 inches away. And then finishing the pick with wheel position and putting your back to them so that we have an option to run 2-on-1. Okay. So the question that might come into place when we talked about high to low and low to high is, how do we know which one we're going to go to? How do we know if we go with the high to low or low to high pick? Well, it's all based on this dotted line that I put here in the middle of the court. This is the midline. So there's a line that goes from basket to basket that splits the court. With the split, whatever defender is furthest away from the basket, that's the one that's going to be picked. So then that also means the offensive player that is closest to the midline is going to be the picker. So that's something where everyone can see it and establish it and understand that, oh, I am the offensive player that's closest to the midline, so I'm going to be the one that sets the pick, and I can communicate to my teammates. Right? So we've gone through picker. Now let's go through pick-e. So we're going to be talking about the ball handler here at the top. So we remember that the picker has communicated to the pickee that they want to set a pick. So the response is going to be that I hear you, and you're going to be communicating again with a name. Once you communicate with that name, you're going to be holding your ground and engaging this defender to keep them showing backs. We had mentioned earlier on in the session that we want to pick backs, that we're seeing backs, and this picker can see the back of this defender. We can see the back of them. But if our ball handler, our pickee, were to turn in and the defender were to turn in, now we don't have a good picking angle because the picker comes and they're face to face with each other. So we want to make sure that the ball handler, the pickee, is engaging the defender by dribbling, pushing into them, making it look like they're going to be cutting into this open space at the top. Once the picker is less than a chair length away from setting the pick, our pickee is going to do an turning out turn. They're going to be turning away from the pick. Notice that they've turned out, so they're turning to their left. And then they're going to do is they're going to close the ability for this defender to back up. So when they turn, they're not going to turn out really wide. They don't want to go out really wide. They want to turn out close. Right behind that defender, so the defender can't back up, and its only option is to go forward. Now that its only option is to go forward, our picker is able to establish and finish off with wheel position. And our pickee, just like in the screen and roll, has got to take a couple of hard pushes and drive out to recreate the space they initially had to start the pick. So the pick came from the low to the high. It's a low to high pick, so that our pickee, our ball handler, is going to go from high and drive low to the baseline. We'll square back up and become a shooting threat. And now the athlete, the pickee, has now made the defender here and the inside have to make a decision. Do they go with the basketball or do they go with the picker? And like we had mentioned before, they go picker. Pickee, ball handler, gets an open shot. They stay with the ball, and our picker gets the open shot. So that is our reads for low to high in the pick. Now let's talk about if we're going to be doing a high to low. So keeping with the same numbers in the ball handling, we're going to rotate these matchups so that number 2, our ball handler, is going to be low on the play, and our picker is going to be high on the play. Notice that they are high here at the elbow. Going to come in with our banana cut like we had mentioned, communicated, V cut, banana cut with wheel position. Our pickee is going to rotate out and up into open space to allow our picker to finish. And now this defender has a decision to make. Do they go with the picker or do they stay with the ball? So just depending on matchups of where the ball is and who is, sorry, not where the ball is, whatever defender is furthest away from the midline is the decision of who is picker and pickee and what we're doing for high, low, high picks. Awesome. Okay, so that's what we're running for pick and roll play. Now let's go into our 2-on-2 cross pick and roll. So now this is 2-on-2 cross pick and roll. We're going to be using it in 2/3 of the court. Okay, 2/3 of the court. And where you can use this on the left or right side. And remember, 2/3 of the court is the sideline to the far edge of the key in open space. Again, same things in place that we talked about with our pick and roll. This is more common in higher level gameplay. You've got a lot of offensive threats that are shooting threats. And now in this one is a lot of ball handling threats. Those are the athletes that ball in their hands, defender comes up, they're able to attack that defender in a one-on-one ball handling and attack the basket, right? This again allows us to get a 2-on-1 situation with the pick, and we have the same roles in play, the picker and the pickee. And remember, the pickee is our ball handler. The picker is the person that is setting the pick. Spacing, again, is key to allow these picks to work. So now let's go back to the whiteboard, and we are going to set up with our pick and roll, a cross pick and roll. So now what we're going to talk about is matchups here. Let's make sure we can see it all. And we are going to bring in a third offense and defense because this is going to be an easier way to describe what's going to be happening. Okay. So let's say that like we talked about before, the ball side here has set up in a low to high pick positioning. We've got a low to high pick positioning. But like we had mentioned, the low person doesn't see this defender's back. The back is facing another direction. It's facing toward the top. And you guys can see here that number one can see that back. We can see that back there. So we're going to go through the same mechanics that number one is the picker is going to do. They're going to communicate to number two that I've got your pick. They're going to V-cut away to turn their defender away. They're going to use a banana cut to be able to get an angle to come in to set that pick. So again, we've got that banana cut curl to it. And once they've established their position, remember biggest wheel, the wheel closest to the basket, the picky is able to rotate out into open space where the pick came from. And now we have a decision to make by this defender. One's going to finish the pick. And this defender has to decide, do I go to one or do I go to the ball handler, number two? If they stay on the ball, number one has an opportunity to go to the basket. If they stay on the picker, number one, our ball handler picky has an opportunity for an open shot at the free throw line. Just like we talked about before, again, we're repeating a lot of the same mechanics that we talked about in our picking for our pick and roll. This happens here for our cross pick and roll, is that the pickee wants to repeat, yes, I hear you, that the pick is coming from number one. They engage this defender, making sure that this defender stays showing their back to number one. And once that pick is established, they're going to turn out. They turn out and making sure that they are tight behind the defender that was defending them, not with a lot of space, but in tight. And then they're recreating space, pushing hard to the space where it came from so that we have an opportunity for a 2-on-1. This can happen both here on the right side of the floor or it can be happening on the left side of the floor. If we were to set it up here on the left side of the floor, we're going to make sure that number two is our ball handler here. Number one is going to be here at the top, facing the same direction, and we're going to move our posts over to this side. Okay, ball handler here. Our number three position low that wants to run the low to high can't see the pick, okay, because they don't see the back. They see the side in front of that defender that's here, but the back is being shown to our number one at the top. What first thing? Communicating that we've got a pick set. V-cut to turn our defender. Number three, we're going to bring in that banana cut arc. Arc to come in to get good wheel position on that chair. And then our picky, a ball handler, is going to rotate back up to the top, taking their ball with them. One finishes the pick, and we've got our 2-on-1. Okay. Last one we're going to talk about here is our 2-on-2 cross pick, or excuse me, our 3-on-3 cross pick and roll. Let's see. Yes, this is the half court. Not full had court, but full half court. That's my mistake on that one. But this is going to be a cross pick and roll in a full half court setting. And that's what we're going to add in the third offense and third defensive player. Again, a lot of same things apply. This is happening on a higher level. You have to have multiple players being able to extend the defense out to get these picks. The offensive players are shooting threats and ball handling threats, just like we did in our cross pick. Again, it allows a 2-on-1 situation, but now we're adding a third role in. A picker, a picky, the two that we had previously, and a post. This is going to be the third person that's going to be in the mix. And spacing along with angles are going to be the keys to allow this to work. So let's go back to our whiteboard and we'll get our athletes set up here. Set up here. Let's put the ball on the outside. Make sure everybody can see it. All right. So let's think about these matchups being ones that are going to be just outside and inside the three-point arc. So we've got our free throw line that's set up here. They're just outside the free throw line. They might even be a little bit higher, but just for the sake of this whiteboard action, we're going to go in these positions. When we're looking for the cross pick and roll using 3 with the post, we're going to be communicating which one is going to be the picker. And we can all see there that the back of the picky's defender is facing this direction, facing towards number 1. So they see the back and they're going to be the one that's setting the pick. So number 1's going to be communicating, I've got your pick. They do their V cut to turn their defender. They're going to banana cut, like we mentioned, coming up in here. And as the banana cut positioning and getting wheel position by number 1 comes in, the ball is going to be swung over to the post, to number 3. So this gives an opportunity for 1 to finish the pick, 2 to clear out with open space like we had mentioned before. Remember that when we get the pick, we're going to go the opposite direction, or we're actually going where the pick came from. And now we have a 2-on-1 scenario here in a lot of open space. But neither of these teammates of ours for number 1 and number 2 have to handle the ball while doing this. The ball has gone over to the post. And now the post can decide which one of these 2 is going to be the open matchup. Let's say this defender goes and guards number 2. Number 1 can roll, and number 3 can pass the ball to number 1 for an open layup, really stretching out the defense. So just like we had mentioned before, we talked about the same picking mechanics. We know what our picker's doing because we just walked through on that. We know what our pickee is doing because they're going to be engaging the defender and making sure that they stay in place. And then they're going to rotate out wide and recreate space, but making sure that they're close enough that this defender doesn't back up and get wheel position on them. And then they will re-engage once we get a 2-on-1. But let's talk about what the post does. So the post is communicating to number 2, the ball handler, early on, that when they hear that there is a pick and they have a cross pick, they're communicating, hey, I've got your post, communicating the person's name. I can post for you. I can post here. They want to make sure that they stay engaged and in contact with their matchup, so their matchup is not able to jump over and attack the passing lane. So they want to keep engaging with chair contact. A lot of times the person in the matchup here is the post may put their hands above their head and just sit in place. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we are keeping ourselves locked in place. And then as the ball is in the air and it's just about to get to us, that's when we pick our hands up and we catch the ball and establish a ball possession. Once we're in this, it's going to be the same way as engaging the defender in a normal pick and roll setting. We want to make sure that the matchup of the offensive player is between the defender and the ball, protecting it that way. And now we've got to figure out what we're going to do for the pass. So we've got to make sure our eyes are up when we have possession of the ball. We're scanning the floor here to see what our matchups have. And then we're going to make sure that we're using the right pass to pass it off. So this could be a outside hand hook pass or a baseball pass, either right or left hand, depending on what it's going to need to be. In this scenario right now, the post person has the ball in their left hand, and because they've got a defender here, they may have to do a left-handed hook pass to drop it into number 1 or number 2 on the drive. So that's a run through on the 4 reads that we had. And we can just walk through those different reads that we just talked about. We talked about the screen and roll, which a lot of you are probably really familiar with, but it's really about the spacing that you have. That's that half a chair length behind the dive. And then it's also about the angles. It's the angles of where you're at, making sure that that person behind, that shooter behind, has a good 45-degree angle and they don't go too high or too low. The pick and roll is all about having the proper spacing. Then once the pick is set, we recreate that space by making sure that the ball handler, the pickee, drives away from the pick, so we get our 2-on-1 option. Cross pick and roll is going to be about turning backs. We want to make sure that that defender is facing away from the pick so they don't see the pick coming. And then the last one is this cross pick and roll with the post, which is the same mechanics as the cross pick, but now it gives us an opportunity to swing the ball to a teammate that is in a stationary position, and we can attack 2-on-1 without the basketball, which gives us more opportunities to attack in open space. All right, so that's what we got for the 4 different groups. I know we've got some questions that have been popped up, so let's start going through some of those questions and see what we got. Okay, so first one, wouldn't a smart defender, upon hearing that the person is picking, be able to recover and guard against this? Yes, a lot of times there will be smart defenders that will do that, but we're talking about and considering that the ball handler, the person, the picky, is a shooting threat, somebody that is the defense actually wants to defend on, and they are going to be pulling and engaging that person to come out. Let's say that they jump out and we say that they're jumping out and they hurry up and they come back in. If we're in a screen and roll setting, that gives us an opportunity to have a wide open shot from 10, 12 feet away. So that's really what we wanted to in the first place. When we are in a position where we're going to be running a pick and roll, let's say we're going to set back up into, let's go into a low to high. Okay. So we're back into our low to high setting, and number one here, our picker, let's make sure that we are seeing backs when we get set up for it. This picker says, hey, I've got your pick, and communicates it out. And as they get ready to go, this defender understands it and comes in, drops back in. What kind of role or what position does that run for us? Well, they're obviously dropping back off, which is making us closer to the basket. So number one, the picker could turn into a dive and go into a screen read, which allows number two to come down and puts us in a screen read setting. Could be a scenario too where that picker stays up, we communicate, hey, pick is coming, and that defender drops off, and then we don't bring the pick, and now that defender wants to go back up and jump the shooter again, and as they go up to set the pick, that's what pulls our picker up to set the pick. Opportunity for timing and speed to be able to do it. What's great about these is that when you're able to run the pick and rolls, if you were to run a pick and roll setting, and let's say that we go up here to set this pick and the pick is a bad pick, all right? Let's say that the pick we get back, the defender gets back inside and one was not able to get it, but two ended up turning out and driving low with the ball. And one still was matched up by the defender here in the high. Well, obviously this defender here low would have to go to the ball. And now you can see that we've turned our low to high pick into a high to low pick. And these two reads cycle with each other back and forth over and over again. We're in this position where the defender here is facing low because our ball handler picky has done a really great job of making them face low. One uses our banana cut to set this pick, but again, it's a bad pick. So the defender gets back inside and two goes back up to the top. These two fight for position inside. And now we have a low to high pick once again, okay? Back and forth, back and forth. All right. Why do you call it a banana cut? So a lot of the times when we have position for our picks, and let's just again go with our low to high since we're already set up that way. If our picker were to go a straight pick and then try to turn it, there's a high probability that that person with the chair coming in may not guess the right distance of those 6 inches, wouldn't have proper wheel position, and also might make contact and foul that person when they come up. So we really want to follow with a good wide curve that allows our chair to turn and get wheel position on that picker. And it just so happens that that slight curve to it is the same type of curve of what a banana would be. And it's a great way of thinking about it and reminding yourself of it. In a screen and roll, why can't the diver go first? All right, so this is not necessarily a must, it has to be, but it's one that allows us to get set up in a better position. So let's say now that, like we mentioned before, 2 is our shooter and 1 is our dive. And we've got our 2 defenders that are already set up here. If our 1 was coming down the floor, and we know a lot of times our defenders are going to be aggressive. They're going to be outside their key. They're going to try to make sure that our offense stays away from the basket. So when our dive comes down and crashes into that position, our original key distance, I can redraw here, is right there. They're really far away because if we're going to run that screen read like we had previously, now our teammate, the number 2, that pick E, is a really far distance. They might be 15, 17 feet. You're getting close to flirting with the 3-point line. But then from there, let's say even the picky doesn't have the ball. The shooter doesn't have the ball. They drive low, and we're continuing to work back and forth to build this in. Or we started off with the shooter is going to be the first one down, and their read is just to go directly down the baseline, getting close to the defenders. And we know these defenders are trying to protect the baseline. We want to make sure they're protecting the baseline. So they're going to turn around and they're going to try to react and make sure that that person doesn't get underneath them and get low. So notice that we moved the defenders by doing that. And if our picker is, the dive, if the dive is following behind tight, they're going to be able to get closer to the key so that these defenders have to rotate and come back in. And then our shooter has gotten them closer. Okay. Again, not something that has to be done, but it's something that allows the dive to get in closer to the key easier. What are a few drills to teach youth how to pick? A lot of times it's just going to be reps. It's going to be a lot of times where when we go through rotations, let's say that we'll talk about it as new Illini tag type of drill. But let's say that we put a chair or maybe a trash can, something that you have available to you in the gym is going to be in an open space right here. And you'll have your athlete matched up here on the low block, and you can have them follow in the same direction to go up in a curve. And sometimes early on when we're practicing it, when we want this banana cut type of curve to it, we might even set up cones in this angle for them to follow so that they get a good idea of following and setting that position. And then going through the reps of being in this position, turning and finishing the pick, and then driving to the basket where you could have a coach over here on this side with a ball to be able to pass for them to be able to take a layup, and then they can curl right back in and reset to go again. Really good way to cycle it in that way. A lot of this is all about getting reps, and it's building them early on of where the position is, how does it feel to make contact on those chairs, and then when you hold the pick, how are you finishing it? Remember, we want those 6 inches away, that dollar, the US dollar length away, and then you're allowing yourself to be able to have that defender turn and make the contact and finish into you. Okay. What would you recommend to rely on when all of your players are not shooting threats? All right. So a lot of times we, in junior level, they've been using screen reads, right? Your screen and roll that we talked about. So let's get our players back in the mix. Let's get our screen read. We get our defenders in place. We got our dive here and our shooter on. So we're saying that the person that is behind the screen may not necessarily be a shooter in that range. That might not be in their range. What we could do is we can encourage the defense to try to jump and roll. So we know in this scenario, both of the defenders are comfortable in the fact that they're going to stay together and neither of them is going to jump. But by changing the angle of the shooter behind the screen, we'll now encourage one of the defenders that wants to go up more. So we can have the shooter, the shooter, go a little bit higher on the angle. And we notice on here that now this is a little bit closer for the high person to jump. So they want to come out here and creep out here a little bit more. And if we're able to do that higher, you might be able to catch the defenders keeping wheel position on the low and wanting to inch out to touch the ball, just enough space to be able to have your dive tuck in and get wheel position. And as soon as the dive gets wheel position and they communicate to the shooter, hey, I've got wheel position, I got wheel, now that shooter drives away from the jump and gets our screen and roll on the inside. It's a really easy way of working that and then being aware that both of those players need to be communicating with each other. Okay. What happens when the defense is high? What happens when the defense is high? So I'm assuming we're talking about the defense is high is that they are playing up really high at the elbow. So let's go with our screen read to start, our screen and roll. So they're really high here at the elbow. What's really easy on this is we know that the majority of our space for our screen read is below. So that's where we want to make sure that we have our roll go. So we want to make sure that they are denying the high jump. We want them to be jumping from low. No, we want them to be jumping from high. So we're denying the low. We want them to be jumping from high. So we can get this pick here on the high space, and our shooter can drive low into open space down low and make this defender make more of a decision with more open space. We're trying to encourage the defenders to give us the open space that we need. So we want to make sure that we get this position back here. They jump from high. We get that wheel position in, and now our shooter is able to go in a wide open space down low. Now let's say that we're not going to go in a screen read setting. We're here in the high, and our dive happened to go in here, and they're really high up this way. We can always have our shooter take the ball down here low, and if they are wide open on their own here on the low, we know that this low defender has to go guard that ball. So they're going to leave their position and go out and extend out to the ball. Might not be very far. They could always come in closer, right? But they're going to come out here and engage onto the ball, which now sets us up for a high to low pick. Our number one picker fakes in the high to make sure our defender is turned away. They rotate out and they follow their banana cut down to set their position and their pick. And then we know that our pick E, our ball handler, rotates out, drives up into open space, and allows our number one picker to close the gap and finish it on the inside. And now when they've re-engaged, we've got a position for our 2-on-1. What's the best drill to teach players pick E to have efficient 2 pushes and dribble during the pick and roll without losing control of the ball and protecting its efficiency? That's really good. I think we do a lot of that work with ball handling stuff where we are driving to the basket on it. We can always use that with chair skills as well. I know most of the time what we'll do is we do power start and stops where it's 2 pushes and a complete stop, but we can also do that without telling somebody. You can do that with pushes with the basketball, 2 hard pushes and complete stop to be able to square up. We really incorporate a lot of these into our small groups or small skills into shooting skills, where you can have an athlete receive the ball or pick up the ball in a location, drive hard, 2 pushes to another spot, stop with a bounce stop, square themselves up and be able to shoot. You can do this with a partner that would have some defense that might be trailing you. You could have a coach that receive with passes. A lot of creative ways of being able to work in small games that way. Okay, how are we doing on time? 2 minutes. Awesome, okay. Last question we got there. To do the pick and roll, the defense must be playing individually man-to-man. If it's a zone defense, we can do the pick and roll anyway. So if we know a lot of the junior teams are playing in a zone. So that's why the screen and roll really works well. But we can also incorporate the pick and roll and cross pick and roll into our offense because those reads are right at the free throw line. And if we have our 2 bigs, usually 2 bigs, or 2 people that usually go down to the low blocks, they can go down low early, pull defenders low, and then we can run our 3 across the free throw line to be able to get a cross pick and roll. If you're able to spread them out that way, that works out well too. This also works out well in transition if you're able to get some picks to open up some space. A lot of options, a lot of different reads that way. But yeah, we just ran through 4 different picking mechanics, just going through the different varieties and what can happen with them. Love to know your feedback on how you guys use these. If you use them, if you use screen and roll, would you use pick and rolls? Would you use cross pick and rolls and go from there? Again, I'm Coach Buchi. We went through our 2-on-2 offense. Really excited to continue this on. We're going to see all of you for the individual skills camp portion in our lifting session with our athletic trainer, Connor Doherty, on Friday. As for now, that's what we've got for 2-on-2 offense. Again, thank you for watching and staying tuned with us, and we will see you again soon.